It's NFL Combine Week, which means there's going to be a ton of focus on the 2025 NFL Draft, all of the prospects in Indianapolis all week long right here on CBT. But what players on the current roster could they trade for an extra pick? Yes, plenty of deals go down in Indianapolis. Let's discuss the players, and there's going to be a few surprises that the Bengals could consider trading this offseason right here on Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Hi again, everyone, and welcome into CBT. I'm James Rapien of BengalsTalk.com. Hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Check out the chat bubble. I'm logoed up today, baby. It's Combine Week. I'm fired up. Hopefully, you're fired up as well. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube and subscribing, where 53,000 plus Bengals fans have subscribed. And also check us out on Apple, on Spotify, on Amazon, or wherever you get your podcast. And when you do me a favor, especially if you're a long-time viewer and you've been around for a long time, leave us a 5-star review on your favorite audio platform. It just helps get the word out that we're on audio. We've been around for years now, and we just started on audio last month. So trying to build that up, you're going to hear from every Bengals coach that speaks on our audio side. We'll have most of the videos here this week at the Combine, but that's why you got to check out the audio side as well, because there's probably going to be a coach or two that are on the audio side that you're not going to get this week from a video standpoint. But as always, today's video brought to you by BetUS. Let's dive into some trade candidates. I think it's so interesting this year. The Bengals have multiple candidates, multiple guys that I think have value across the league. And obviously it starts with Germaine Pratt because he requested a trade. I think he's 50-50 on whether or not he gets traded, whether or not the Bengals find a partner for him. But I think he's more of a cut candidate than anything. And we went over the cut candidates last week. Feel free to check out that video as well. This one is like part 2. These guys might not be cut candidates, but they certainly could be trade candidates and have value across the league. And I think a couple of these guys, stay with me here, because a couple of these guys are going to intrigue you. But to me, this is about the Bengals potentially adding draft capital, shedding more cap space, and continuing to give themselves as much maneuverability and flexibility, not from a cap or cash standpoint, but from a, man, do we really need to keep Geno Stone for this second year? And that's the first guy. That's the first guy on my list here. Outside of the obvious, Germaine Pratt, Trey Hendrickson, T. Higgins, because there's going to be talk about trading those guys if long-term deals don't get done with T and Trey. And Pratt obviously requested a trade. But outside of that, I think it starts with Geno Stone. Geno Stone might have some value with his current deal. And you might be able to get an early-ish day 3 pick for it. Like if you get a 5th rounder for Geno Stone, I would do that. Maybe a 6th rounder. I could see teams being interested in him at that price. And you would shed over $6 million in cap space by doing that. And so absolutely, if you're the Bengals, I get it. It creates a hole. And there's a lot of people that want Geno Stone back. I think there's a lot of people that would cut him. I lean that way. Because I think Tyson Anderson can be better than Geno Stone. Certainly every bit as good as Geno Stone. I think he's athletic. I think he's someone that has shown it on special teams. He's a better tackler, certainly a better athlete. There's no reason to think that he wouldn't have more range on the back end. Was a late round pick like Geno Stone was, but a much better athlete. And so for me, you already have a guy that you could just, now the Bengals may say, oh, well, Tyson has had a couple of injuries, mainly the ACL in year 2. And we want depth there, and we have a lot of holes on our roster. I get that. And that's why I trade him, not cut him. Geno Stone wasn't really mentioned in our cut candidates list. He's a trade candidate. And I would field offers because I think you could get something for Geno Stone. Another one that may surprise some people is Cordell Volson. You'd save over $3 million in cap space, $3.5 million. I think that would make sense because, look, he got benched towards the end of last season, has made a ton of starts, has gotten a ton of snaps, is a really good guy in the locker room, and has, like, there's a spot in the league for Cordell Volson. There's no doubt about it. Now, did I kind of expect him to take another step last year and that didn't really happen and it kind of went the other way? Absolutely. There's no doubt. I thought year 3 Cordell Volson might take a step forward and we might be having a different conversation about him. But really good dude, plays hard, tries hard. Last year of his contract, can be a backup guard at worst for you for a little over $3 million. I think he has value across the league. I think a team would trade a late round pick for Cordell Volson. Those are 2 guys on my list right here. The next guy is going to surprise you, and it might be a little controversial. And I can't wait to tell you who it is coming up next. Today's video is brought to you by BetUS. Make sure you get in on all the action, whether it's NBA, Major League Baseball, the NFL futures. They have a full casino at BetUS.com. And right now, if you go to BetUS.com, make that first deposit, use code YouTube150. You'll get a 150% bonus on your first deposit up to $2,000. That's code YouTube150 on your first deposit, and you'll get a 150% bonus. It's free money to use on Bengals futures. It's free money to use on all things sports wagering in their sports book. They have the fastest payouts in the industry. Don't delay. It's such a user-friendly website as well. So go to betus.com and use code YouTube150 today. This next one's going to surprise a lot of people. And I was talking with Joe Goodberry about this, and I do think it's a sneaky one. Cam Taylor-Britt is absolutely a trade candidate. Now, I really like Cam Taylor-Britt. I also really like Cordell Volson. I also really like personally, like if I see them, I'm shaking their hand and I'm talking to them and I'm having a conversation. And so this one is going to surprise some, but you're talking about a guy in Cam who's entering his 4th year. He's someone that has had an up and down 3 years in Cincinnati. Last year was certainly an up and down year. New defensive coordinator, new scheme. And yeah, you did keep Chuck Burks, the Bengals cornerbacks coach. And I think everyone in the building feels like Cam has talent. But you need to be having a different conversation now. It's like, all right, well, yeah, he has talent. Do you start him? Is he a starter? 1, 2, is he a guy that you're willing to extend? I think right now the answer is no. And so what can you get for Cam Taylor-Britt? I'm not saying give him away, but if you get offered a 4th round pick for Cam Taylor-Britt, save $3.5 million against the cap, you could certainly go out and get a cornerback with that. Not just with the $3.5 million, but you have cap space. So you save more cap space that you could put towards a cornerback. You know, Cam has been up and down. This draft, there's a scenario where you draft a cornerback pretty early. You have DJ Turner, you have Dax Hill, you have Josh Newton. Do you have DJ Ivy? You have guys that you feel pretty good about, and you still need a 1. I get that. I do think they need a number 1 corner, is what you would argue. And so if you can get value for Cam, I would certainly consider trading Cam Taylor-Britt. Now, I'm not giving him away for a 7th round pick or 6th round pick. It's much different than some of these other guys where, like, if you get offered a 6th rounder for Geno Stone and you're open to cutting him, you're probably taking that 6th round pick. You're not holding out for a 5th rounder. If you get offered a 4th rounder, let's say it's a conditional 4th for Cam Taylor-Britt, where if he plays in 10 games, if he's active for 10 games, it's a 5th round pick that goes to a 4th round pick. I think that would be really tempting. Really tempting, because he's going into a contract year, and it would essentially clear a spot so you could bring in a young guy or bring in a veteran or do both and not feel like you don't have enough assets to address some of your other needs in the draft from a development standpoint. So Cam Taylor-Britt, of all of these guys, I think he has the highest value from a trade standpoint. You clear a little cap, and you're talking about a cost-controlled corner that has flashed his talent, has made some awesome plays, has been inconsistent, but it's $3.5 million in cap savings that you would make. He's affordable. I think it would make a lot of sense if you can get the right offer, early day 3 type pick. And honestly, I just said the conditional thing. I take that back. I would want the pick this year. So 4th round pick in this year's draft for Cam. Man, I mean, that could be, you're talking about deep defensive line class. That could be your 2nd defensive tackle that you draft. I think that would be mighty intriguing and take a little pressure off if you can get a top 130 pick in this draft, somewhere between pick 95 and 130, or in that range, 100 and 130. I think you would really consider it for Cam Taylor-Britt. The other one, and this really has no cap savings, but it is Jermaine Burton. If the Bengals have gotten too frustrated with Germaine and are just out on the Jermaine Burton experience, which there's been a lot, cutting him doesn't really make sense, because at least as of right now, because it just doesn't help you cap-wise. It's just blah. But if you could get a 6th round pick for him, 7th round pick, conditional 6th, I think you entertain it. Like if it's so old now that you're done with it. So I have to mention Jermaine Burton, because I do think that there's a scenario there where he could be dealt if the Bengals are just done with it. And there's a team that's like, yeah, we had a 3rd round grade on him. Let's kick the tires on him for a 6th or a 7th. I could see that. Now, I think it's unlikely. Of all of these, whether it's Pratt, obviously Pratt's the most likely. Trey and T, the Bengals are planning on keeping them long term. From Stone, Volson, Cam, Taylor-Britt, and Burton, I would say Stone is probably the most likely. And I don't think he's a great fit in Al Golden's defense either. Stone's the most likely to be a trade candidate. I think Cam Taylor-Britt would have the highest value. I think Volson is kind of the guy that would make the most sense, maybe the most likely to be traded, certainly on offense, but would make the most sense for a lot of teams. I think Stone, you're only looking at a few teams that would potentially be interested in him. For Cordell, I think he could have a decent amount of value because, again, he could just be your backup guard. And if you're a team that wants a backup guard that's going to be able to stabilize that spot for you, he can do that. And that's why the Bengals might want to hold on to him, by the way. They might hold on to all of these guys. But I do think that there's some value that could be had. The Bengals have 6 picks. I know a lot of people have said only 6 picks. Fine. You want to add another pick or two? See if Cam Taylor-Britt has value this week, how he's looked at across the league. This is when deals start to happen. The combine, so 2 years ago when the Bengals signed Orlando Brown Jr., the combine is when things started to get out that, he was going to get to free agency and the Chiefs wouldn't tag him and this was going to be a thing. This is when it starts. And then it kind of went from there. But we will see if the Bengals entertain a couple trades. I think you can move some of these guys and suddenly you look up and you have an extra 4th, an extra 6th, and you're feeling really good about the draft capital and shedding cap space, clearing cap space in the process, opening up more room to maneuver and do what they want to do this offseason. We're going to have you covered all week long at the NFL Combine, so please, please, please check us out right here by hitting the subscribe button on YouTube. Follow wherever you get your podcasts. And today's video was brought to you by BetUS. For Andrew Fox Miller, I'm James Rapien. Thank you so much for watching and listening to Cincinnati Bengals Talk. Do you buy or sell that the Bengals are going to re-sign Mike Gesicki to a long-term deal?
I'm going to say sell, and not because I don't want it to happen. It's like building a parlay, James, when you're trying to figure out what's going to happen in the offseason. I'm not going to add a 4th and bet on all 4 things happening here. If they draft another tight end, you just drafted 2 last year's draft. How long can this continue? It's yet another tight end that gets sort of a prove-it deal. They prove it, and you're probably going to get paid elsewhere.